I think the tracking of the interior development of one's psychology in a fractal lens, coupled with Timewave Zero, is a possibility. I've been exploring the contours of Ken Wilber's integral theory. This integral theory is one in which it's using many different developmental maps to explore the idea that humans develop through stages or waves of consciousness. Now, this integral theory, as posited by Ken Wilber, has 4 quadrants in it. These quadrants are suggestive of the perspectives or lenses from which we look at or understand or interpret reality. I believe that these lenses actually have inherent within them a sort of primary focus in which we have to develop through. In other words, you can layer or interweave developmental psychology along with these 4 quadrants. What this does for us is it shows the fractal nature of developmental psychology. In other words, you can layer and thereby interpret it far more into the future exactly how we will develop. The interesting thing in my mind is that the 4 quadrants, I believe, are a map pointing to the future, in that the 4th quadrant itself is not one that we have a brain for. In other words, our Turing brain, or 3-part brain, I think, is the expression of the good, the true, and the beautiful, or the 3 major perspectives, I, we, and it. However, we do not have a systemic mind. The systemic or intermind is one that we are developing in and through things like the internet. This 4th mind is the expression of this 4th quadrant, or interobjectivity. Now, what I'm suggesting here is that in the fractal sense, we have moved through the first-person perspective up into about reptiles, which is the fight-or-flight mechanism, which is sort of the traditional Darwinian expression of evolution, in that, it is all about the self. The lower left quadrant, expressing the idea of the we, or mutuality, is the primary focus, as it were, of mammals. Now, mammals seem to express a care for other, and this seems to be integrated into their limbic system. Now, see, the reptiles don't have that, so they show very little or no kind of care for other. Of course, they're still enacting or in expressing or part of these 4 quadrants moment to moment, but their primary focus, their ability to enact these other perspectives, is inherently kind of not there. However, with mammals, they have the ability to sort of quote-unquote conscientiously, even though they're not self-reflexive, enact both an I and a we perspective, or care for other. Now, the care, again, isn't reflective. They don't know that they're really doing that in a sort of self-reflective or self-recognizing way. However, with humans, we have not only that self-reflexivity in and through things like the neocortex, but also this care for other through our limbic system, the cerebellum, and the fight-or-flight response, the individuality for the self that is inherent sort of in the reptilian brainstem. We have that 3-part brain. Now, what we're doing is we're building the 4th brain. Things like the internet allow us to have an integrative, interactive map where we explore the contours of this map collectively through shared symbols that express sort of a holistic network of ideas. Now, Terence McKenna's theory is one in which he's arguing that time itself has contours, roughly speaking, so that you can map time and you can know the degree of novelty expressed in and of time. Now, what I'm suggesting is that these 2 maps can be overlaid onto each other, in that developmental psychology does, to some degree, point to the future. Now, it doesn't have the kind of fractal contours, I believe, that this integrating map that I'm expressing does, in that it shows how there's spiral backs on itself. That is to say, even though your primary focus might be, as all humans are, I believe, within that 3rd objective realm, whether it's focused on primarily the self as object, a culture as object, or a cultural social construct, namely, say, a religion, or a whole paradigm as a tool to express truth in and through things like science, or relativizing all of worldviews as sort of the pluralistic postmodern mind does. So, you know, this whole quote unquote first tier of consciousness, or the what I'm calling the third focus, is that realm that we have been exploring as humans for the last 100,000 years-ish. And what we're doing now is we're moving into quote unquote the second tier, which I consider to be the fourth sort of major perspective. Now, we haven't really had the brain for it, but we're building it collectively, however weird that might sound. And this allows for an intermind of some real sense. And in so doing, we are yellow and turquoise are these developmental stages, and how they sort of lay into Timewave 0 is that we have now objectified this third perspective, or objectivity, in a way, in a big enough way that we can move beyond it. And so that's, to me, the representation of December 21st, 2012, where the timeline sort of ends, as it were. And that is to say, I believe that our understanding or expression of time will change at that point too, as novelty reaches its maximum. I'm going to, in a few future videos, try to explore exactly how these two maps can be integrated. Hopefully over the weekend I will have time to show this. So, you know, Wilbur focuses in many regards far more on the interior landscape and this sort of thing, and that movement. McKenna, although he does, and they both do touch on the other side, McKenna's far more on the exterior and showing how, you know, for example, planetary bodies and such have this kind of organismic, holistic pattern that repeats itself to some major extent. Now, you can break this down into, in my mind, what is sometimes called the physiosphere, the biosphere, and the noosphere. Now, the physiosphere, in many regards, lays the groundwork, or the patterns therefrom, from which the biosphere builds, and the biosphere is the foundation groundwork from which the noosphere comes. And again, those are the three, in a sense, major perspectives that we have embodied in some other regard. Now, so the physiosphere being the most kind of simple is also the most foundational, and so it really does sort of set up many of the foundational ground rules from which the biosphere and the noosphere comes. Now, but when the noosphere grasps intellectually the conceptual patterns of the physiosphere to such a degree, I believe it will be a pivotal moment for which the noosphere can come together as a collective. And somebody, you can, in other words, use that as an essential part of the integrating map that it's, as we individuals are collectively working on. There's this desire, or telos, as it were, this moving towards this eschaton, or this integrative system of mind, and that, to me, is, when that is to some degree reached, it is an intermind in a good, wholesome sense. Now, I am of the mind to some degree that this is a choice that we have to make, as there is freedom in the universe, I'd say, to some degree. It's a major degree, and so in that sense, this isn't predetermined. There is potential for things to go south, things to go wrong, but to me, the path has been laid pretty well. That the intentions are that to move to a higher order of complexity, in other words.